Have you ever felt like you know what would help your health, but you just can't seem to follow through? Today, I want to talk about why that might be and what the Gospel of Matthew 25 shows us about it. Welcome to Her Holistic Healing. If you've been feeling tired, overwhelmed, or like something in your health just isn't adding up, you're in the right place. In this podcast, we take a faith-fueled, whole-person approach to your health so you can find clarity, make wise decisions, and experience more energy and peace in your daily life. Today we're going to look at Matthew 25. In verse 14, a man was going on a journey and he called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one servant he gave 5 talents, to another servant he gave 2 talents, and to another servant he gave 1 talent. The first 2 servants doubled their talents. The last servant hid his talent. To the first 2 servants who doubled their talents, the master says this: "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." The man who hid his talent says this: "Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours." But his master answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." I read this before starting this podcast episode, and as I read it, it kind of puts the fear of God into me, a good fear, I think. First of all, let's talk about what a talent is. I looked this up. The talent, when they're talking about talent in the Bible, this comes from the Greek word talenton. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. It was usually silver or gold. And imagine this: 1 talent was equal to 20 years of labor. So one servant received 5 talents, the second one received 2 talents, the third one received 1 talent. And that 1 talent was equivalent to about 20 years of labor. That is a whole lot of gold or silver that these servants were entrusted with, right? So the first 2 that were given more doubled what they were given. The third servant went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. And this is what the servant said about why he hid his money. He says, "Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground." It's my understanding that in this story, the master is Jesus, and the servants are us, right? God gives us talents, or in other words, I think talents in this story could mean many things. God gives us many things to steward, many things to take care of, many things that he wants to see a quote return on his investment. He calls us to steward our bodies, our health, our money, our time, our gifts and talents, and wisdom. Some of us have been given a lot of wisdom. Some of us have been reading the Bible for a very long time. What are we doing with what we are learning? So, what can we do with these gifts, these talents, this wisdom, our money, our time? How can we take care of our bodies? We can either take care of what we've been given, take care of it well, or we can just do nothing with it, right? The third servant who hid his talent, he had a distorted view of God. He was afraid of God, and he said, "You are a hard man." He was afraid of the master. So if the master is Jesus, God in the story, and we are the servants, God has shown us who he is, right? He's shown us through the sacrifice of what Jesus did on the cross. He showed us that he loves us and he's compassionate. And it says in the Bible over and over and over again how God's love is everlasting. He will never leave us or forsake us. God is full of compassion. He is gentle. He is kind. And so many times we get this distorted view of God and we're scared. We don't want to take a risk. We just want things to be safe. We dig whatever we have, we just hoard it. We just dig a hole and keep it in the ground. But as I said before, God has shown us who he is. And perhaps we need to keep reminding ourselves of who God really is. And in faith, we are to take care of what he's given us. We are to multiply and use what he has given us. In faith, we are to multiply. We are not called to play small. So, how do we play small? What do I think this means? Today in our culture, I think we play small because we're so distracted. And I keep saying this over and over again because it's so important and we see it everywhere and it's so easy to be distracted every single day for hours and hours and hours a day on social media or watching TV, entertainment, negative news. Not all of this is bad, but we can even be distracted by good things, right? I was watching one of Ryan Pineda's YouTube videos and his co-host was talking about how there are certain people, I think they were talking about men these days, younger men, how they can just sit at home, play video games all day, they can work from home, never see a person. You might want to pause this if there are kids around. So they can just sit around playing video games and then just watch porn and not interact with real people. And we're already in that world today, but think about in the future. I mean, the way AI is going, it's just getting better and better. We have self-driving cars. There's most likely, there's going to be robots eventually, which can be good and bad, right? But even more, I mean, if you take that picture today, I mean, put that same young person in his house. He doesn't interact with anyone. He plays video games all day. He can interact with virtual sex workers or sex workers behind a camera. Sorry, I keep mentioning all these bad things. I think technology can bring good things, but it was just interesting to think about where the world is now and where it can be in the future. I'm mentioning this because I think it can become even more of a problem in the future, and it's so important to teach our kids and remind ourselves not to get distracted. How else do we play small? We play small when we stay where we are, when we stay in the same routine, even though we know that God is calling us to do something different. I think I mentioned this on the podcast before. When I was working at my previous job, the job where I was for 10 years, there was a point where, well, for many of those years, I just wanted to leave. Upper management would just throw you under the bus when you make a mistake, even though it was really their fault. It just got really dry and boring, and it was completely out of alignment with what I believe in. And when I was talking to my coworker about it because I was trying to find something else, she said to me, "Well, at least here you know what to expect. At other places you won't know what will happen." That's a true statement, right? How many of us just stay where we are because we don't know what's going to happen if we do something different? The truth is, if God wants us to do something different, we have to do something different, even if we won't see the outcome, because most of the time we won't see the outcome. I mean, that mindset is how abused children stay with their abuser even when they become adults, right? Because they're scared. They don't know what to expect. They don't know how to live outside of where they've been living. And this also goes for the Israelites, right? Even after the Israelites saw God's miracles over and over again, each time they said, "Moses, why did you lead us out here? We miss the food in Egypt." Even though they were slaves and they were mistreated, they wanted to go back. And I'm thinking now that that's human nature for us to just stay stuck and stay where we are, even though our circumstances are not good and they're not what we want. We just stay there because we're afraid. How else do we play small? We play small when we're just busy. We're just busy, but we're not being intentional about what we're busy with. Sometimes we volunteer too much, but we're volunteering in places where God doesn't want us to volunteer. We're, I don't know, maybe putting too much energy with our kids when God wants us to work on our marriage. We play small when we stick with the status quo because once again, we don't know what else to do. And we figure if we stick with the status quo, we'll be, quote, safe. Here's another interesting thought. The way that AI is going, some people are saying that the whole educational system will be uprooted. Some real estate experts are saying they would never invest in college towns because they believe that college will be obsolete. People are saying that people like doctors and lawyers we will no longer need them as much. They won't make as much money because information is so prevalent around us. Some people think that plumbers and roofers, the blue collar workers, will be the high earners. Who knows? I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, that's something to think about when we are trying to train our kids, when we're trying to advise them on what to do for their future. Is it smart to keep doing the status quo, sending them to college? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. How else do we play small? We play small when we're bending to society's expectations of us and we're not doing what God has called us to do. We like to obey what society says more than what God says. We play small when we're not being obedient to God, when we care more about what people think of us than what God thinks of us. We play small when we want to stay comfortable, when we don't want to obey because it's uncomfortable. Let's bring this back to our health. We're called to take care of our bodies. We're called to steward the bodies that God gave us. We're called to take care of our health. When it comes to our health, sometimes we play small because we give up hope. This is not meant to shame or condemn or make you feel bad. I'm challenging you, I'm encouraging you. If you feel like there's no hope for your health, I just want to tell you that there is hope. And God calls us to have huge faith. He says that there's always hope. There's always hope in Him. We have joy in Him. We have His love. So there's always hope. Maybe you haven't given up hope, but maybe you know what to do when it comes to your health. You're just unsure, or you're doubting, or you're just not being obedient with God, what God has told you to do, because you don't know what will happen. You don't want to try one more thing because you've tried so many things before. Maybe he's been telling you to see a different practitioner. Maybe he's been nudging you, saying that you should start an accountability group at your church. And in that group, you can keep each other accountable with your health habits. Maybe you're playing, you're quote, playing small with your health because you're believing the lies that have been told to you about who you are. You serve the maker of heaven and earth. You are made in the image of God. Think about that for a second. You're not created to be a cockroach or a plant or a cow or a cat or a dog. You have a soul. You can speak. God is a creator. And because you are made in the image of God, you were called to create things. Life and death is in the power of your tongue. That's in James. I really want to encourage you if you've been, quote, playing small with your health. I just want to encourage you, tell you once again, there is always hope. Even if you've been struggling with your health for years, there is always hope. I want to challenge you and say that chances are you have an idea of what to do to improve your health, but maybe you're just not doing it. I really want to encourage you to move forward, to take that next step. My mission, the reason why I started this whole podcast and my business and all that, my mission is to encourage you to seek God's wisdom first for your health and life so that you may experience true, lasting healing, so that you can make a greater eternal impact in your home and in your community. I know that you have many hats. You might be a mom, you might be a caregiver for your elderly parents, you might be a grandma who takes care of your grandchildren. I know that you serve in church. I know that you might be a nurse. I know that you might be worn down. The whole reason why I want you to get better is well, for you. I want you to get better just because I care about you. But after you get better, you can serve the people that you love even better. I want the church to show up for this generation. When we have the energy and vitality to serve God, we can serve God either way, but as we get healthier and we continue to serve God and serve others, think about the effect that this will have on our kids and their kids and their kids. So if you're listening to this and you're realizing, I know it would help, but I'm still not following through, I don't want you to just walk away from this episode and stay in that same place. Because sometimes this isn't about willpower. Sometimes it's about what hasn't been fully seen or understood yet. And if you want help actually thinking through what might be going on in your specific situation, there's a place for you to do that. If a full session feels like too much right now, I also offer a shorter session where we can just focus on one specific area and begin to make sense of it. If you're interested in that, you can go to herholistichealing.com/peace. Either way, I pray that you keep moving forward with hope and with peace. I pray that you will take that next right step that God is calling you to take. Thanks for listening today. If you like what you heard, would you take a minute to leave the show a review? I would love to connect with you at herholistichealing.substack.com. Matthew 11. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls.
For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Do, 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 Bye. Bye.
This content is for informational purposes only and is not meant to be medical advice.